Alrighty, what's going on, everybody? Hopefully, we get some people hopping in for what is a very unique slate today on this Wednesday. Welcome, propping up on Gold Boys Network, brought to you by Pickett and Boom Fantasy. GriffyBets, joined by Walla. We both had a really horrible night last night, so I'd be down to have a better one tonight. I was thinking about it. If we just win our bets, then I think we'll have a better night. And what an awesome slate to do it. So, how you feeling? You wake up excited?
I mean, I feel like I can't get any worse than yesterday, so that's something, right? It can only go up from yesterday.
You would hope. Yeah, that was frustrating. Uh, we had a little did a date night last night, so I didn't look at my phone till around 9:30, and I hopped on and just saw a whole bunch of nothing happening. So that was a really fun thing to see. Um, yeah, tough to know who let me down the most. Jack Eichel, I feel like I didn't even love, and I played him, and he didn't come close. That was a frustrating one. While everyone else on Vegas and Florida hit, it was Jack Eichel I focused on in that game, like a dunce. Uh, but what are you gonna do? We got 3 games tonight. At first glance, they really look horrible. I mean, there's a couple spots, but I've almost started to turn. I'm seeing so many people say how bad today looks that I kind of think it's going to be a fun night. I don't know, because I said it earlier, but how many times like does everyone say, "What a slate! Oh man, this is going to be fun," and then we all fall on our face. So just to see so many people like, "Ew, yuck." Now I'm kind of thinking maybe we can find a couple gems. So why not?
Yeah, some good angles, I think.
Yeah, why don't we jump right in to Chicago and Detroit? I mean, at first glance, obviously wanted to try and find someone on the Detroit end. No secret there. Chicago on the road, especially letting up around 36 shots, almost 4 goals a game, and surely they can't possibly have another shutout win. Um, Shutting out Ottawa was quite a surprise the other night. I feel a rude regression coming for them here. So I was trying to find some Detroit points angles. Their shots conceivably should look good too. I wasn't loving too much there, but I do think Detroit can find goals here. And that's where I think the basis of finding something in here should be.
Yeah, there's a couple nice home charts as well. If you start poking around at Detroit players, I think the obvious one is Larkin.
Yeah.
Uh, been awesome at home, racking up points. Looks good in this matchup as well, history wise. Um, But, he's super juiced, so that would have to be parlayed with something if you went the point route.
Yeah, I do like his point looks great. Um I like that nope, sorry, got sidetracked. Yeah, I think just him being on the top line, top power play, always a good sort of makeup to follow for a guy and seeing how consistent he is.
Yeah,
Definitely a good parlay like.
his shots should be good, you would think, but, he's been more consistent with the point. Yeah, I think if you're gonna trust an angle, and because of the shots, he was up at 3.5 for a bit, so he's cooled off a little. So that's why I kind of like going point just in case he has a game where he doesn't end up shooting. He's let me down a couple times, but can still get an assist. So
Yeah, it was interesting. Shots wise, no one looked too great at home, except again, very juiced, but Mo Sider at 1.5. Really consistent at that number. I mean, he's hit 2 shots at home in what looks like 15 of his last 17 games. Um, so that's awesome to see. Um, for guys that have Bet 365 or Fliff, maybe you do a Sider shots Larkin point combo. Could be okay. I One of the bets I did place was Sider to get a point. Um, Couple simple reasons. I mean, I do like following those defensemen when they're shooting, um, because there's just so many ways that those shots can help lead to a point. But I like that he had 2 in his last 3 games. He has 2 in 3 games against Chicago, and he's just much steadier at home. 6 of his last 10, which is fine. But if you go back, he's racked up 12 total in his last 13 at home. So
Mhm.
he was pretty reasonable this morning, minus 112. Looks like that's moving a little bit, but I did a half unit on Cider to get a point. It's just sort of one of the only ones standing out to me here.
Yeah, I like that angle, and I think there was an earlier game this season we talked about these exact two guys, and I think Larkin scored right away, and Sider had an assist on it. So I like the correlation that it could be with Larkin, who's been hot at home, and you switch over to Sider at home, and like you said, lots of points in his recent games. Um, I liked his shots too. I just, when I looked in, he has like 3 straight games with one shot against Chicago, which, that doesn't necessarily mean he can only get one this time. Maybe it's due for a big game against them. But I thought his point looked, kind of equally as good when you look at the home chart recently, and much better odds, obviously. So I like that angle.
Yeah. On the flip side, so the one thing, I mean, I looked into it, but wasn't impressed enough to make it a play. I mean, Detroit does hand out a decent amount of power plays. And I think he played Monday and we talked about Seth Jones. He's sort of been taking up the mantle as top power play shooter. The concern being that now he's on the road where he just seems to be two different guys shooting the puck. Um, at some point, that has to break. But um, I mean, let's look at his season here. I'm just bringing it up on PropStat Cash. At home, Seth Jones is over 2.5 shots in 66% of games this year. On the road, that goes down to 28%. That's just a crazy difference. So I know, I mean, he's done a lot of scoring. I know some people are sprinkling on his goal, which I think is like plus 550 on DraftKings. He scored in what, 3 straight games? Um, if they get those power play chances, he seems to be one of the guys shooting. It's just impossible for me against a team that doesn't even let up that many shots in Detroit to back Seth Jones here with his road production.
Yeah, that it when you look at that, it's not too appealing. I guess the only argument that could be made is, the last couple 2 games where not just Kane, but Domi's been gone too. He's had he's looked pretty good with his shots, but those were at home. So it's if those happen to be on the road, it would be like, oh sweet, like uh maybe it just doesn't matter, but it happened to also come right when he was at home at like perfect time. So it is a little concerning seeing that road chart. I would just hope that with the everybody gone, maybe he just has a new role. If you want to back him, maybe he's just going to. It doesn't matter anymore. They're telling him shoot. You're the guy now. Um, aside from him, I thought I said it last time, Athanasiou's point, who you gonna back on the team? He's still plus money. I mean, I'm not saying I love Chicago to score or anything like that, but he's a point 4 of his last 5. There's not really many people to do anything there. Um, that's just a guy to keep your eye on, see how he produces now with an expanded role as time on ice is up. So if it's going to be somebody on that team, it's Jones or Athanasiou, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, Jones' volume's great. 18 attempts his last 3 games, 11 shots on goal. He has hit in 2 straight against Detroit. He had 4 last time he was in Detroit. I do think it's hilarious. Yeah, he's got 4 goals in his last 3 games, and if you have points bet, he's plus 650 to score. That I mean, couldn't hurt to throw a cup of coffee on that at that price because I think he's down at Caesar's. Well, Caesar's goal odds are horrible now, but he's plus 285 there. I think FanDuel he's at plus 400, so plus 650 for what he's been doing could be worth a sprinkle.
Yeah, it's not like you know again, it's a 3-game slate. If there was other games that looked better, then you probably really, wouldn't want to get too involved in this game. But those are the 2 guys in Chicago I like. I think Detroit side looks a little bit better, and I like your cider play point. I think that's just a solid angle for how they've been doing at home.
But I mean, yeah. So for people who don't like props, I'd say some form of Detroit's team total, whether you go up to 3.5 or move down to 2.5 in a parlay, and some form of them winning. I feel like they're getting 3 to 5 goals here, and they're going to win the game. Would be my read of the situation. It's really hard for me to believe Chicago can pull off what they just did the other night again. But we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Minnesota, Winnipeg. I think there's some intriguing options here. I thought both sides looked okay for shots. I liked the Minnesota end much more for anyone who was shooting on the power play. Winnipeg's been struggling there, and actually the inverse. I was trying to find people on Winnipeg that weren't so reliant on the power play because the Wild have been so stingy with penalties lately. But I think this game has merit for shots on both ends. I think there's a couple guys that look solid.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are going to be on Kirill, and he's been awesome lately. I think he's had a really big spark, shooting a lot. Uh, volume looks nice. Just the season he's been kind of rough on the road, so I'm hoping that there's just a he's just trying to get a spark going for the team recently. But that's my hesitation on him. He's been producing really well at home and on the road. Little bit less so, but I know you're not too concerned about that in this matchup because of Winnipeg's been struggling with staying out of the box. So should be his share of chances on the power play, right?
Yeah, I got him at 13 shots on the power play in the last 10 games, which is awesome to see. Yeah, I mean, he's much better at home, and he's not just hitting at home. He's absolutely smashing lately. He's got 6 shots in 4 or more in 4 of his last 5 at home. But I mean, so yeah, the hit rate goes much lower on the road. But I mean, volume wise, sure, at home, last 5 games, he's averaging 10.4 attempts, which is absurd for a 3.5 line. On the road, yeah, it dips down, but it's still 7.4 in his last 5. That's a fine number. That's a number I would feel comfortable backing. So yeah, the presence of the power play, and I like that. He has had some good games against Winnipeg. He's had 5 or more in 3 of his last 5 against them. I don't hate. He's slightly juiced here at 3.5. I don't hate waiting for alts to come up and going for 5 here. Maybe do a half unit, or I really like Ehlers on the other end. So if you can parlay the 2 of them on Bet365 or Fliff, or using something like Boom Fantasy to combine these guys, I think that's a fine approach. But I think moving him up to 5 looks a-okay here. He's just been on fire.
Yeah, the matchup looks good. I know the other day you had played Hurdle against Winnipeg, and I mean Hurdle's he's not doing too much overall this season, and that definitely got him his chances stepping up on the power play. So this matchup makes a lot of sense for Kirill. If he's just feeling it right now, they get on a few power plays, he can very easily have a big game here.
Yeah, I think I will just wait and go for the 5. I mean, you look back on the last couple games, and forwards are just someone's having a big game against Winnipeg. Hurdle had 5. Nugent Hopkins had 4. Draisaitl had 5. They played it back to back. So again, Nugent Hopkins had 5 there. McDavid had 6. Kopitar and Arvidsson each had 6 plus. Before that, Rantanen had 6. Kreider and Trocheck and Zibanejad all had 5 or more. So it just goes back and back. So a lot of big games.
Yeah, that's definitely setting him up really good. I mean, you reading those names, he could fit the bill there for sure for some shots tonight.
Yeah, so I think I'll go him at 5, but I think 3.5 is obviously fine. I mean, I see minus 130 right now. Is you could play that straight on DK. It's minus 152 on FanDuel, so nice little price difference there if you believe in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think I've been getting, maybe a little too caught up on the pricing and stuff like that. Yesterday I liked a couple guys and um watched them easily hit, and they're at like minus 130 ish. And sometimes I feel like I want to pair it with something to get into plus money. But if you really trust the read, -130 is not a terrible price by any means. You can still make some good return there if you trust it enough. Uh,
I know
and
it is just one of those when you bet to win one unit, right? Risking
yeah,
1.3 on something that does have there's some randomness to shots on goal and some frustration
mhm,
sometimes with stack corrections where it does if you just bet one unit on anything, it's a little easier pill to swallow if it doesn't
yeah,
work when you have to up that risk. That's why sometimes I like either doing 2 leg parlays at plus money instead or moving up a number. But
mhm.
yeah, I think -130 is fine. Maybe I'll play it straight. I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely changes things how you bet. If you're trying to uh, win one unit, then the loss could hurt a little bit more. But if you just bet a unit, I think sometimes we get a little too hung up on things when we really like a look, and you miss some wins. But I think it's interesting because you're talking about how Kirill, on the road maybe doesn't have the best hit rate, but the spot makes sense with the power play opportunities. You got Connor on the other side, who I know there's people who are liking him. Uh, uh,
Oh, we're losing you. Oh God, Walla's gone again. This happened before it went live. This was my worst fear. I'm now stranded alone while Wall figures it out. Um, I have no idea what his train of thought was, but I'll keep talking because alts just came up, which is cool. So Kaprizov at 5 is plus 158. I like that. Um, I don't know if people have been looking at these popular parlays more, but I've been trying to wait and poke around for them because there are um, gives you the chance to basically same game parlay guys on the same team you might not be able to. Um, the frustrating thing being FanDuel picks and chooses, because I really like Matt Boldy today as well. He's second on power play shots lately. He's got 9 in his last 10. He's fresh off a 5-shot game, and on the road, he's been really steady here at 2.5. He's hitting 7 of his last 9, and he's hitting 2 of his last 3 against Winnipeg. I would love Kaprizov and Boldy to each get 3. I'm just poking around to see if that. I don't see it, um, but I like Boldy as well. Let me talk about the other side while we wait for Walla to hopefully come back. Um, I mentioned that I like Winnipeg shots, but I wanted to try to find someone not relying on the power play because I've seen some people really like Kyle Connor shots today, and I get why. Um, at home, he's been great. He's got at least 3 in 8 straight. Some big games lately, and he's had some big games against Minnesota. And he's gone for 4 plus and 3 in a row. He gets a lot of his shots on the power play lately. And the Wild have been one of the stingiest. Last 20 days, they're only handing out 1.9 power plays per game. So just knowing that a decent chunk of Connor's volume is coming on the power play makes me a little nervous if he doesn't get those chances. But one guy who does not rely on the power play, he only has 1 shot on the power play last 10 games, is Ehlers. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. So I was considering him. I mean, he had 5 shots last game, 5 shots the last time he played Minnesota, and his chart's really interesting. This year, it's funny. I mean, he's hit 2.5 in 50% of his games. But the weird thing is, you bump that up. He's hit 3.5 in 40% of his games. So he's only landed on 3 times this year. So it just makes me think, if I do like him, maybe I just go to 4 because 2.5 is -140, but now we know alts are up. 4 is plus 190. It just seems interesting to me for how often he hits 4, fresh off a big game. He had a big game last time against the Wild. So that's where I'm looking. Nice to see those up. I might do a half unit on both of those. Just sending a message to Walla. See if he wants to rejoin us. I'll just keep talking. I know he was going to bring up Nino Niederreiter, recently joined Winnipeg. I think there's some merit there. He's hit his shots in 3 straight. You can kind of see a ramp up in volume here. And he also has a point in all 3 games he scored last time. I believe he has some nice history against the Wild. Yeah, he's got, granted, with a different team, but he has a point in both games against them, and they were both goals. The Wild are on a back-to-back physical game. Went to OT, went to a shootout last night against Calgary. So, I mean, I know Fleury's been pretty solid lately, but 2 of those solid games were against Columbus, so I kind of view that with a grain of salt. So Nino's minus 110 for a point here. He is plus 260 for a goal. I think that's a fine look. Elsewhere, I'm not really sure what else really stood out to me in this one. I like Kaprizov, like Ehlers, like Boldy. But yeah, I think I'm going to do Kaprizov up and Ehlers up. Maybe just do a half unit, keep it simple. Yeah. So I guess I'll just keep going. Walla may never come back. It's too bad, but only one more game. And it's Anaheim, Vancouver. This is one. I mean, you got to think Vancouver gets their shots and goals off, just like everyone does against the Ducks. I'm really hoping Thatcher Demko does, give that guy the night off. He's deserved it. He's been, Vancouver was a team we were targeting a ton for goals. Demko came back and he's been awesome, because I do think there's some guys in the Ducks that look really solid here, but I'm gonna have to wait and see. I mean, Daily Faceoff is projecting Demko. I mean, they don't play again until Saturday, so you have to imagine they run with him here. I'm just hoping, I don't know, give him the day off. It's the Ducks. So I'll put this on your radar. Keep your eyes peeled on goalies. I really don't recommend betting this until we get confirmation there. But I think Ryan Strome for a point looks awesome. Again, if it's not Demko. He's on the top line for the Ducks and the top power play. He's got 4 points in his last 4 on the road. And he has 4 points in his last 3 against Vancouver. He's plus 115. He was plus 120 earlier, so looks like some people are betting him down a little bit. I think, again, it's one of those profiles. And sometimes it doesn't even matter. You get a price like this for a guy that's on the top line, on the top power play. And Vancouver does hand out a decent chunk of power plays. That's just a really good price in a situation for a guy who's, on the road, he's been producing, has nice history against Vancouver. I think the same type of profile also applies to Cam Fowler. He is on the top defenseman pairing for Anaheim, and he's also on that top power play. He's been way steadier. He's got 11 points in his last 10 games. On the road, he's got 5 in his last 4. Hasn't had too much success recently. Against Vancouver, I'm seeing 2 points in his last 5, but he's plus 106 for a point. Very steady, getting awesome time on ice. So that's another I have my eye on, because I do think, again, should it not be Demko? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe I'm overhyping him a little too much, but both of those stood out. As did Trevor Zegras' shots a little bit, simply because I'm seeing a guy who's shooting the most on Anaheim lately. He's fresh off an 8 attempt game. And he had 6 shots against Vancouver last meeting. I believe he's got 8 points in his last 3 against him. So just a guy you think might have a little bit of confidence. Welcome back, Walla. Took a little break. I know you didn't want to even go on today, so you almost got out of this one, but good to see you back. We completely, I covered Minnesota, Winnipeg. We're on to Anaheim, Vancouver. But
Yeah,
I focused on, what's up?
I had it open. I was watching you talk.
Perfect. So I just put a ton of focus on Anaheim. Haven't talked about Vancouver at all. So I served you up the easy part of it. So why don't you talk about some Canucks?
All right, sweet. Yeah. So one of the only things I've done actually is JT Miller shots, and I paired it with a Kuzmenko point. I just think always got to target the Ducks. It didn't work for me last night with Schwartz, but there's definitely still a lot of chances to go around. So I think Miller's a trustworthy guy here for some shots. He's been great at home. Just been steady at his 2.5 line for a while now. And then, you look at Kuzmenko, and he's been really solid lately. 8 of his last 10 overall, 7 of his last 10 at home. I think he had a hat trick last time these teams met. So with both of them being kind of juiced, slap them together and hope that Miller's shooting and Kuzmenko can maybe get an assist or get one in himself.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome parlay. I got both those names down as well. If you can't do that, maybe I don't know, pair that with I don't know, Larkin points. Still seems like a really nice leg. Maybe do Larkin Kuzmenko points together. Um, one of those, I mean, I threw out Kaprizov, Boldy, and Ellers myself that I like, all decently juiced. Maybe a pair JT Miller with one of those guys. But yeah, if you have Bet 365 or Fliff, that's an awesome combo. And just something nice about not pairing a 7:30 game with a 10 p.m. game. Just so far apart.
Yeah, admittedly, looking at my options, my combination of guys, and just felt, didn't want to spread it out. I've done that before. You get a really easy hit early, and you're just waiting for that second leg, and then just kind of craps the bed or something like that. So you don't want that. Uh, so I just was looking at that last game, and that's on this slate. Just feels like best one to target. Ducks on a back to back. Why not? Vancouver's looked, their cast of characters who typically get the job done. I think they're set up well here, so just figured pair them together in the same game.
Yeah, I like that. I did JT Miller to score. Plus 166 FanDuel is what I got earlier. Just, he looked the best for shots. The volume is definitely there, even if the goals always aren't. In a game that I think they look good for goals, 5-on-5 and on the power play. So Miller and Pedersen are both on the power play. I bet both of them to score. Miller's got a goal in 3 of his last 5 against Anaheim. Pedersen's got 1 in 2 straight, and also 3 of his last 5. And he also just has he's got a goal in 2 straight overall. So I liked just the high volume guys that are centering their lines, both on the top power play. Both were plus money on FanDuel, hoping at least one of them comes through. But I do think both could definitely deliver. I mean, they both scored last game against the Ducks. So why not again? Just
Yeah,
a simple-minded approach.
yeah. I was looking at the power play point odds, and wasn't pretty. Miller and Pedersen, I think, were both minus money. Don't want that for power play. Kuzmenko looked all right. He had one last time they met. He was at plus 195. But they should definitely get their chances. At least that's what the books are thinking. So uh, I don't. I think either of those guys, both of them, could score in this matchup.
But yeah, again, I think similar to Detroit, loading up some form of a Vancouver team total could be a fine approach if you don't want to figure out who it is that's involved. And again, I think I said this 8 times already, but if Demko is not playing, I don't hate the over in this one because Anaheim has been a little bit feisty. And some of those guys I mentioned, Fowler, Strome, I really like them for a point. But, if Demko's out, the over looks really nice here. So hopefully we get some clarity there in the next couple hours. But
Zegras point. Um,
yeah,
he's
I was
been
mentioning him when you came
super
back.
steady. Yeah, sorry if you talked about it. Just I think it was like 8 points in his last 3.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That's a lot. So if he has a good matchup, then that's definitely an option in this one.
But yeah, I didn't hate his shots, just because He's got a couple nice games. His volume looked better than anyone else on the Ducks. And I really like that 6-shot game he had against them in November. And you got to think a young guy like this probably knows, wow, I've been having some nice games against Vancouver. Maybe that ups his intensity a little bit to keep firing the puck. He's hitting 2 of his last 3. Doesn't look good on the road. Really, on the year doesn't look great. That's why it's plus money. But
Yep.
someone's going to hit on the Ducks.
Yeah, I'd definitely be interested. Some form, some angle on that side. I prefer the point angle, like you said, if we get the right matchup. But Vancouver side just looks really set up really well in this one, especially Miller. I just think maybe don't talk about how him enough in the names of just consistent. Been consistent for betting recently. Toffoli gets talked about a lot. Miller's been pretty solid, especially at home. So this is a really great matchup for him. Could end up having he could end up having 4 or 5 on net if he gets going.
Yeah, definitely. All right, why don't we transition to best bets here? Short show, only 3 games. Like I just mentioned, while I was on an island, I'm going to play Kaprizov 5 shots at plus 158 and Ehlers 4 at plus 190. Those are 2 I really like in that game. Seems like the right time to bump those guys up. But if you can combine them at their normal lines, I think that's obviously a fine approach too. If I like them each to get more, those are 2 I'm most excited about. I like Cider Point and those 2 guys on Vancouver to score. And honestly, I think that might be the extent of my day.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the Cider Point angle looks pretty good given his home hit rate and just the odds on his shots. If you feel like you got to pair that with something. So the point play looks nice as a solo one. I don't think you talked about it, or maybe you touched on it. I don't know. Nino on the Jets.
I did. Yeah, I gave him
Okay.
his shine for you.
Yeah, his point. I mean, not the best matchup, but he's looked good on his new team. I brought it up last game. Looked good. He had some goals against the Sharks, scored against them. Well, he's had 2 goals against Minnesota. So, yeah, maybe if he's just feeling it right now, if you're looking for a straight play, his point looked pretty decent for how he's been producing lately.
Definitely. Yeah, and his shots didn't look half bad either. Yeah, point super solid. All right, I think we're for pick and play of the day today. We're gonna roll with that combo Wallet cooked up of JT Miller over 2.5 and Andrei Kuzmenko to get a point. What did that come in on at Bet 365?
Plus 140.
Yeah, that's great. Again, if you don't have access to those books where you can combine, just know that those are 2 nice parlay legs that hopefully you can pair with something else you're liking today. But that seems like an awesome combo to just keep picking on the Ducks while we can, because we're slowly running out of time there.
And I can't believe it's already winding down. But, snuck up fast.
We still got 3 months till that Stanley Cup is hoisted. But yeah, it'll be a sad day to say goodbye to some of these horrible teams for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But then playoffs come, and then endless overtimes come to cash all the shots and goal props.
Who's going to be the Yossi this season? He was just automatic last season in the playoffs. They're giving us plus money just on him over and over again. And he was awesome. Can't wait to find this season's, playoff hero like that.
Yeah, that first round last year was a ton of fun. And a ton of long series of guys just hitting their shots every single game and we're getting plus money. Kopitar was that guy last year, that first round. I think he hit in games 2 through 7. And I think only game 7 was when they finally realized, wait, he's been plus money this whole time.
Whoops.
Yeah, that was great. All right. Well, thanks for joining for those that did. No, it wasn't a big slate, but that's okay. Don't need a ton of bets. Definitely. Tomorrow's a big slate. Friday's a small one, but Florida it's Florida plays Chicago and Calgary plays Anaheim, or I had those mixed up. Those are going to be some juicy Friday games, and then big Saturday slates. So there's no reason to go overboard here. If you're not loving stuff, the week is not even halfway done. So manage your bankroll right. Have a
Yeah.
couple bets. Go hang out with some friends or family, and don't stress so much about hockey. But let's find a couple wins tonight and roll it over to tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Thanks, guys. Good luck tonight.
Yep. Good luck. Thanks for joining.